What is up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of the Touchline Talk Show. Thank you so much for tuning in. As always, be sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of the content I put out every single week. An MLS season is days away. That means it is MLS preview day on the Touchline Talk Show. But before I get into all of that, there is Champions League action to discuss, and that is where we are going to start. Obviously, your headliner of the week is what happened at Anfield. It was 2-0 Liverpool, and then it was 5-2 Real Madrid. A very strange game that involved brilliant goals, horrific goalkeeping mistakes, and just about everything in between. I mean, Darwin Nunez has one of those moments of brilliance that you wish he had more of, where he gets that flick, he beats Courtois, Anfield erupts, and he has that in him. Sometimes the finishing goes haywire, but it's not like he is a fundamentally bad finisher and that he doesn't have the ability to take these kind of chances. He is just one of the most difficult players to try and understand in the world right now because you see it, but it's not always there, but you know he has it, and he showed you that with that goal. Then Courtois is trying to clear the ball after it gets sent back to him. It kind of pops up. He gets caught on it. Mo Salah fires it into the net, which makes him the most accomplished European goal scorer in Liverpool history. So congratulations to Mo Salah on that. That is no small accomplishment considering Liverpool's history. And then you have the decisive moment, which was Vinicius equalizing out of nowhere. There just aren't many players in the world who have the ability to put that kind of footwork together to get the ball out of your feet and create the kind of space needed, and then to actually pull off that shot. It was just world-class stuff all around from Vinicius. It's the kind of thing Real Madrid just has this ability to do in the Champions League. I was consistent with my messaging last season that you need to give them credit for what they did because they also won La Liga, while also recognizing La Liga wasn't good last season and that they just weren't the best team in the world. And that's been vindicated this season where they have struggled in La Liga and are really chasing Barcelona at this point. I mean, it's not a title race. They're clinging on, hoping they can put something together because Barcelona is clearly the better team. But in this competition, in these moments where it matters most, they just have a way to find this goal out of nowhere. And it was Vinicius this time. And then Alisson gifts the goal that Courtois gifted to Liverpool right back. Credit to Vinicius for, continuing to make the play, to chase the ball down. You never know what happens. And then you come out of halftime, free kick, deflected shot. Benzema sits Alisson down for the fifth, and all of a sudden, this is the worst defensive performance in a European game in the history of Liverpool at home. There are just a couple things I want to focus on here because a lot of this is the same stuff when we're talking about Liverpool and what's gone wrong this season. On the positive side for Liverpool, there's nothing you can do about that first goal. That's just the level of competition you're facing when you're trying to become European champions. That's just Vinicius being one of the best players in the world. The second one, obviously, you can fix. The third one, it's a free kick. That can be addressed too. The fourth one, you were just kind of unlucky. Yeah, maybe some players should have done better. Joe Gomez didn't have a particularly good game. But it's not like the goals came from fundamental breakdowns until the fifth one. And at that point, it was pretty much over already, in terms of the tie. So the fifth one, maybe it ends up mattering, but it certainly doesn't look like it's going to. So it's this weird thing where they were the better team in the first half. They were definitely the better team at the beginning of the game. It just kind of disappeared at halftime. But the goals themselves weren't were either ones that you can live with if you're Jurgen Klopp, or ones that are just kind of either or they're really easily fixable, or they're just bizarre things that happen, like Allison kicking the ball off of Vinicius. It's not like there are a lot of sort of tactical things that need to be addressed in terms of these goals. They were all kind of sort of bizarre and unnatural for different reasons. The problem is the rest of the game outside the goals, and the fifth one, I guess you would count into this, in that second half, was just Real Madrid running rampant. And you see these moments where Luka Modric is flying forward from midfield to join the attacker to move Real Madrid forward, and he's just gliding by guys. This is Luka Modric, who A, at this point in his career, should not be running past any midfield, and B, he's not, even in his prime, he wasn't Kylian Mbappe in terms of pace. What makes Modric so great is his technical ability and the fact that he's still playing at this level at his age. But you're the first thing you don't think about with Modric is speed, which goes, the conversation again about Liverpool's midfield, and clearly changes need to be made there. Jude Bellingham, if they get him, is really going to help with that. And I've said this before, but I am really curious how much of an impact that single signing can make in terms of fixing some of these problems. But you also need a center back. There are questions to be asked about whether this is the right group of players from a strengths and weaknesses standpoint to pair together moving forward. That's the other thing I'm starting to think about. It's not that I doubt Andy Robertson and Trent Alexander-Arnold as players. It's whether I want Trent Alexander-Arnold playing right back in front of a midfield that doesn't have the legs to cover for him. That's also part of this. I've talked about this before, right? It's a snowball effect because of the way that Klopp wants to play, because of the realities of that back line. You have to have people doing the running, and you've got, two forwards out there who haven't played in the system very long, who Mo Salah is still trying to figure out how to work with, and three midfielders who it's just not working, and the legs aren't there. So the hope I hold on to, this season is gone. It looked for a second like maybe they were going to do this, and then you saw the difference in the mental fortitude of these two teams, because Real Madrid were not fazed by a very uncharacteristic mistake from a guy who was the best player in the Champions League final last season. And, it just starts falling apart for Liverpool, and they've got no way back, and they offered nothing in the second half. So you just got to hit the reset button. Not having to play so many strenuous games in the Champions League next season, assuming they don't rally at the end here, and at this point I don't have any hope that they will. That might help. You got to get some signings in. I still think the pieces are there. That I view this as a reset, not a rebuild. But there's a clear reset that needs to happen. It is not just the midfield. It is not one or two players. It is trying to figure out how to get the right players in to get everybody playing at their best again. Because Van Dijk is not the same player, as good as he still is. There are vulnerabilities with the fullbacks that have always been there, but they got covered up originally with that midfield. That this midfield, with a 32-year-old Jordan Henderson, with James Milner still out there, Fabinho is not the guy that's going to cover that ground for you. You got to find solutions there. I still overall believe in this. I believe in Klopp. I don't think they're that far away. And they're still hanging around in this top four race. They have a lot of teams that they need to be better than the rest of the season, and that's where I have concerns. I don't see them getting to fourth. But Newcastle are dropping points left and right. Spurs are now in fourth. You got Brighton up there. You got Fulham up there. None of those teams scare me if Liverpool can figure this out. I just don't see them figuring this out. And you've seen enough poor performances against, your mid-table Premier League teams. You go up against Real Madrid and you play well for 20 minutes and then fall apart, you're going to get punished to the tune of 5 goals. There really isn't much new to discuss out of this game. It's just more questions about Liverpool's future, what the next step is, how do they get back. It's also just, if you look at the rest, I mean, Chelsea have been, up and down in terms of Premier League, right? Win it one season, firing the manager, finishing 10th the next season or whatever. Arsenal just haven't even gotten to those highs. Certainly Manchester United have been up and down. Spurs are not locks to make the Champions League every season in, the past 5-10 years. Really the only team that's been consistent is Manchester City. And even they had that one season where Liverpool waltzed to the title because they had a down year. It just happens sometimes. But I just have this inherent faith that Klopp is going to figure it out, that he's going to get this team where it needs to be from a mental standpoint. And that might be the one thing from this game, is that I just don't see that happening anymore at this point this season. To me, this was kind of the last hope for a rally to salvage something, to make a run in the Champions League, to feel like you're on the right path, even if, they lose a close game in Madrid or something like that, but win the home leg, give themselves a chance, and obviously all that's gone. And you've got another demoralizing defeat, more questions, more embarrassment. I don't see this turning around. Crazier things have happened, but that was kind of the final stand for me, if you will, in terms of trying to change the narrative on this season. And instead it ended up reinforcing it. Second game, Manchester City 1, Red Bull Leipzig 1. City jump on the attack early, get a turnover. Riyad Mahrez scores. Red Bull Leipzig offer absolutely nothing in the first half. Looks like City's going to waltz to a win. They have some other opportunities. They don't take them in the first half. That's become a thing this season that you don't normally associate with Manchester City. But they do have these times where maybe they get one, but they leave themselves open to a potential comeback, a weird thing happening. See the Nottingham Forest game. And sure enough, here comes Leipzig in the second half, miles better. Even before the goal, Benjamin Hendricks has a chance that he probably should have finished, that he puts just wide in the 55th minute. Then Josko Guardiola gets the equalizer they absolutely deserved. I'm not disallowing that goal with all the nonsense that gets allowed to go on in the box during set pieces and wrestling and all that kind of stuff. I would have let that stand. And, City do come back a little bit. Gundogan forces a good save. You've got the handball controversy. I don't really want to get into that. This is just another reminder. City this season, there's nothing in City's track record that indicates they're going to go win 10 games in a row. It's just not how the season is going. And this is a fine result. They're still odds-on favorites. And you were without some key players, most notably De Bruyne. Haaland, this was another one of those games where he just kind of goes missing, which is just part of what's going to happen in this system. I said from the beginning, I have all the faith in the world in him. I have all the faith in the world in him to deliver for Manchester City. This is not how you maximize him. And that's okay, because this is how Pep wants to play, and this is how City is going to play. You can fit him into it. There are ways for this to work. Obviously, he's scoring boatloads of goals this season. But there are also going to be games where it looks a little bit awkward. It's a little bit difficult. He's just not very involved. But then there are other games where he's not very involved and he pops up with 2 goals because he gets 2 chances and takes them both. The other guy I want to talk about for a second is Jack Grealish. Jack Grealish was arguably the best player on the field in this game. Starts the goal, has a terrific pass at one point. I think that might have been the Gundogan save, if I remember correctly. I might be wrong on that. He created the chance for somebody with a terrific pass. Oh, it might have been the Holland chance. I don't remember which one it was. But he was really good. And, he's starting to pick up a couple big goals and delivering in some big moments in a season where so many players, most notably De Bruyne, Holland at times, João Cancelo before he was shipped out of town. Some of these guys have been underwhelming for City. Jack Grealish is starting to figure this out. He is really... Does he have the goal and assist numbers you would want yet? No. Will he ever get them at City? Maybe not. Because just about everybody, especially with Holland in the team, everybody outside De Bruyne and Holland, you're just not going to get that many raw goals and assists. And there was always kind of this underlying narrative with Grealish, or underlying argument that, yeah, he's not putting up the numbers, but the analytics tell you he is impacting the game in really good ways. And there's some value to that. That also is not enough when you're, one of the most expensive players in the history of the Premier League. But the way he is really starting to, at times, take control of games and be a difference maker, be the focal point of City's attack, in a season where there have been a lot of things to be disappointed about, that is something to be excited about if you're a Manchester City fan. I wanted to give Jack Grealish his props because he has been, especially recently, very, very good, and he was in this game as well. Last two games to get to quickly. Napoli take care of business against Frankfurt. This thing could have been 3-4-0. I mean, Victor Osimhen wins a penalty by just hustle and jumping in front of the ball. It gets saved. He almost gets a second goal right after he does score, that it was just offside. The second goal, finished off by Di Lorenzo, was absolutely gorgeous and everything that makes this Napoli team great. You got the Randall Colomani red card in there, who's been one of the best players in Europe this season. And if Frankfurt was going to make a comeback here, they need Randall Colomani. And not going to happen for the second leg. Napoli should waltz to the quarterfinals. And I kind of keep coming back to this about this Napoli team. It's not just that they are destroying people in Italy and are so clearly better than everybody else in Serie A. It's that every step of the way, similar to Benfica, they have looked the part. Not just in Italy, not just in league games. They're doing it in the Champions League too. We're phenomenal in the group stage. You get a pretty advantageous draw in the round of 16. And just like Benfica, really take control of it on that away leg so you don't have to stress at home. Osimhen is playing out of his mind. I can't remember anything like this. This is, and comparing Napoli to Leicester City is inherently disrespectful to Napoli. They've been, Champions League, Europa League participants, one of the top 4 or 5 teams in Italy, storied history. I'm not trying to make that comparison. But just from an optics standpoint, and we didn't expect this team to be here standpoint. Leicester had some thrilling comebacks, some close wins in a season where so many teams were down in the Premier League. Napoli is just out here destroying people, and it doesn't matter who. Juventus, Eintracht Frankfurt, Liverpool, Ajax. The consistency and the consistent excellence has been absolutely remarkable and continued in this game. And the other part of this, too, I've talked about this before, but the depth. Especially now that they don't have to worry about Serie A, and it's just kind of a procession until they actually mathematically clinch the league. They've got the bodies to do just fine in Serie A anyway, and if they drop some points, they don't have to worry about it. They're the best team in the world. They're playing like in the Champions League. they can absolutely win this thing. And they don't have the added stress of a title race like a Manchester City. They can start even shifting their focus. And regardless, this is not a team where you're starting 11 guys and those are your 11 guys. This is a team with 18 to 20 contributors, 5, 6, 7 guys who can score goals for you. They have the depth to keep up what they're doing in Serie A and be as good as anybody in the Champions League. This is 100. There just is nothing else to say at this point. This is who they are, and they are absolutely brilliant. Continuing with a Serie A team, Inter gets a late win over Porto. Inter were on top early in this game. Then it was kind of a back and forth. Porto created plenty of good chances, just couldn't take any of them. Inter couldn't take any of theirs. You got an Otavio red card in the 78th minute off of the second yellow. That changes things a little bit. Eventually, Lukaku comes on and gets the goal that Inter needed. The only thing I really want to say about this game is if you are Porto heading back home for your second leg, you got to feel really good. They were at least equal in this game, if not the better team. Unfortunate to get the second yellow, unfortunate to concede the goal. But heading in, if you give that 1-0 scoreline in a world without away goals, you take it every day of the week. And you put that performance on top of that end result. Yes, ultimately it's disappointing because they deserve to be at least level heading into the second leg. But you should have all the confidence in the world that they can at least get this thing to extra time and could very easily turn it around. There was nothing about Inter's performance that really scares you, and if anything, you come out of this game, even though they lost, feeling even better about Porto's chances in the second leg.